N.Padmashri from SNS College of Engineering, Coimbatore. Today, I am going to discuss a topic called linear regression from machine learning. Let's move on to the slide. Before we understand what is linear regression, first I will be explaining about what is regression. So, the proper definition of what is regression is it is a process of predicting continuous value. Here, I have given one dataset as an example to understand what is regression. Here, you could see the dataset of a car, so which is having multiple attributes. First is engine size, cylinders, fuel consumption, and CO2 emission. There are set of 8 cars in which the continuous values of the engine size, cylinders, fuel consumption, and CO2 emissions are predicted. So the question is, in the last row, the car number 9, we have given the details about the engine size 2.4, cylinders 4, fuel consumption 9.2, and we need to predict this value of CO2 emission. So is this possible to predict the value of CO2 emission of a new car? Yes, we can able to predict the CO2 emission of a car by having these past details. So what the past detail is giving us is, it is giving us the continuous value. So by comparing that here in the new model, we can able to predict the CO2 emission of the car number 9. So what is regression? It is a process of predicting the continuous values. So can we predict? Yes, we can able to predict through the machine learning algorithm. So the algorithm that we are taking here is regression, linear regression algorithm. So using this linear regression method, we are going to predict the continuous value of CO2 emission. So in regression, we have two classification. One is two classification of variables. One is dependent variable and the another one is one or more independent variable. So these are two variables we are going to use in the linear regression. So the dependent variables are nothing but a state, or it can be either the target value or the value that we are going to predict. That is going to be the dependent. And say we can keep the dependent variable as y. And independent variable are also known as the explanatory variable, which is called as a self-explanatory variable, and it can be the causes of those states which are represented in the dependent variables. See, in this data set, we have two types of variable. As I already said, it has y dependent and x independent variable. So the same data set we can take in order to understand what is the dependent and what is independent variable. See the last column in which we are going to predict. So the dependent variable is the predicted variable. So what is the question I have asked? The CO2 emission we need to predict it. So y can be the predictions and x are all the independent variable. So dependent variable say y, we are going to use it to predict the values of CO2 emission of a car. So, and what about the independent variable? There is only one dependent variable, and the independent variable has multiple fields, right? It can be engine size, it can be cylinder, it can be fuel consumption, etc. So, see here the dependent variables are continuous variable. Okay, we can say it is a continuous variable. So, how will we understand what is a regression? So, the graph that is displayed in front of you, which explains about the x-axis and y-axis. We have plotted x-axis as independent variable and y-axis as dependent variable. And see the line of regression. So, line of regression it is, as I said, it is a continuous line, right? It's a continuous straight line, and the values that we are going to measure is a continuous prediction values. And the data points that we have plotted is scattered. It is scatterly that we have plotted with respect to x and y axis. These are all the data points. So, what is the dependent value? It should be a continuous value. It cannot be a discrete one. And the independent values, independent variable, or uh, can be measured either by a categorical or continuous measurement scale. So let's move on to the regression model. How a regression model should be. What is the regression model? A model we are going to use to predict a value. To predict a value. So we have to construct a model such that the model has to predict the continuous values. Continuous value. I'm considering my model as a new car. New car. See, we have taken it as a model. How to build this model, new car? So, just like that, we cannot build a car, right? So, we should do some study. So, where we will get all these informations from the past data set. So, what is the model of the car? History. The history data showing the details of the past cars, including the how much cylinder, number of cylinders, engine size, consumption, CO2 consumptions, etc. So, this model, the model will be taking the data from the past data set, and what it is going to predict the expected CO2 emission. So what we had learned from this regression model, we use the regression to build the model, to build the regression estimation model. So then the model is used to predict whatever the values. The model is used to predict the expected CO2 emission for a new car, or we can take it as an unknown car. So this is how the model is working. Then we are going to see the classification of regression. There are two types of regression models: simple regression, multiple regression. So simple regression we can again classify into two types: simple linear and simple non-linear regression. Multiple regression is also classified into two types: multiple linear and multiple non-linear. We'll just see only the definition. What is a simple regression and what is a simple linear and what is a multiple linear regression? Say for example, predicting y dependent values with only one independent variable is called a simple linear regression. Again, I will repeat the same. Our target is to predict the value. So, what is our output will be termed as y. Y is a dependent variable. So, say CO2 emission. I am going to predict the CO2 emission with the only one independent variable. What are the independent variable in this example? We have considered engine size, maybe the engine size, number of cylinders, fuel consumption, etc. So if I predict the value of y dependent variable with only one independent variable, say like engine size, then it is called as a linear, simple linear regression. Just ulta of simple linear is multiple regression, linear regression. So what is that? If I predict the value of y dependent variable with more than one independent variable, then it is termed as a multiple linear regression. Say for example, I am predicting the CO2 emission based on the engine size as well as the cylinders of cars. So based on these two independent variables, I am predicting my y output say dependent variable, then it is termed as a multiple linear regression. I hope you have understand both the simple linear regression and multiple linear regression. So the detailed explanation will be followed by the next video. Thank you.